I still remember that morning, the way the glass windows of the downtown café glowed with pale sunlight, the smell of roasted beans drifting in the air, the clatter of cups, the hum of conversations blending into a soft choir of ordinary life. It was my third day working there, Dot. Just 3 days of wearing that too big apron, learning the register, memorizing the menu, and pretending I wasn't terrified of messing up. And yet on that morning, something in the air felt different, thicker, heavier, like the day was holding its breath. "Table 6 is yours," Mira, the senior waitress, whispered as she passed me. "You'll be fine, Lily. Smile. Be calm. And don't drop anything." I laughed nervously. No promises. I picked up my small notepad, tucked my curls behind my ear, and headed toward table 6. That was when I saw him. A tall man in a charcoal suit, broad shoulders, hair perfectly combed back, a face that looked familiar, though I couldn't place where I'd seen it. He wasn't loud like the usual businessmen. He wasn't tapping away on his phone. He wasn't glancing at his watch impatiently. He was still, too still. His fingers drummed lightly on the table, not in boredom, but in tension. His jaw flexed. His breathing was shallow, like each inhale took effort. "Good morning," I said, trying to sound confident. "Welcome to Harbor Cafe. What can I get for you?" He looked up slowly, and when our eyes met, something inside me tightened. His eyes didn't match the rest of him. Everything about him screamed control, power, composure, yet his eyes looked lost, red, glossy, almost frightened. "I'll just take a black coffee," he murmured. "Of course," I replied. "Anything else?" He shook his head. I wrote the order and stepped away, but my stomach felt uneasy. Why did he look like that? Why did a man in a $10,000 suit look like he was hiding a storm? Before the 2-minute mark passed, I quickly said into the camera in my mind, because that's what the cafe felt like that morning. "By the way, if you're watching this from somewhere far, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. I love reading them. They make me feel less alone." I carried the coffee back to his table, but the moment I reached him, something happened. His hand jerked. The cup slipped slightly. Not enough to fall, but enough for me to notice his fingers trembling. "Are you all right?" I asked quietly. For a second, he didn't answer. He just stared at the black coffee like it held a memory. Then he whispered, almost to himself, "Not today? I can't afford today to go wrong. It wasn't meant for me." But I heard it. When I turned to walk away, my eyes drifted to the leather folder sitting on the table. A gold embossed company logo, and then it clicked. That's where I'd seen him on a magazine cover by the register 2 days earlier. Elias Ward, CEO of Ward & Crane Holdings. A man rumored to be negotiating a $100 million merger deal that would change the entire tech industry. My breath caught. Why was he here alone in a cheap cafe, looking like he hadn't slept in a week? I went back behind the counter, but every few seconds, my eyes flicked toward him. The tension in his shoulders. The way he checked the door every time it opened. The way he pressed a hand against his chest now and then, massaging lightly. He was waiting for someone, but also hoping no one would come. Something was wrong. I could feel it the way people feel storms, before the clouds even formed. Mira nudged me. "Stop staring. You'll freak him out. He doesn't look okay," I whispered. "Rich people always look like that," she shrugged. But this wasn't rich people stress. This was something else. Something physical. And then it happened. A man in a blue suit entered the cafe, the kind of man who walked like he owned the ground beneath him. His eyes scanned the room until they landed on Elias. Elias froze. Completely. The man in the blue suit walked toward him, each step deliberate, controlled, predatory. I heard Elias mutter his breath. "No, not here, not now." Instinct pulled me forward. Before I even understood what I was doing, I walked straight toward their table, heart hammering. Elias looked at me shocked, almost confused, like he hadn't expected anyone to step between him and whatever danger was approaching. I forced a smile. "Sir," I said loudly enough for the approaching man to hear, "you have to come with me. Now." Elias blinked. "What?" "Please," I said through my teeth, still smiling. "Just trust me. You need to leave. Now." For a heartbeat, he didn't move. Then something in my eyes must have convinced him, because he stood slowly and followed me toward the back hallway near the storage room. The man in the blue suit stopped, confused by the sudden movement. "Where is he going?" A man demanded loudly. I turned, holding the coffee pot in my hand as if I were just doing my job. "Sir, if you don't wait to be seated, I'll have to ask you to leave," I said firmly. His jaw tightened. He knew I was lying, but he didn't know how much I knew. Because while I'd approached the table earlier, I'd seen something tucked beneath the CEO's folder. A small medical card. Diagnosis. A condition that, if stressed, could turn fatal in minutes. And the man in the blue suit? He wasn't here for friendly business. Elias followed me into the hallway, leaning on the wall as he exhaled shakily. "What? What are you doing?" He whispered. I swallowed. "Saving your life, I think." He stared at me as if I was the strangest waitress he'd ever met. I didn't blame him. I barely understood it myself. But I knew one thing: something terrible was about to happen if he stayed. And I wasn't letting that happen on my third day, or ever. Elias stared at me like he wasn't sure whether to thank me, question me, or accuse me of losing my mind. I didn't blame him. I barely understood what was happening myself. "You need to breathe," I whispered, watching his hand tremble as he pressed it against his chest. "You looked like you were about to faint out there." He let out a shaky exhale. I was close. I didn't expect him to show up. "The man in the blue suit?" I asked. "Who is he?" Elias looked away, jaw tightening. "A problem," he said. "A very old problem." Before I could push further, footsteps echoed near the hallway. Heavy, slow, searching footsteps. Elias tensed immediately. I grabbed his sleeve and pulled him deeper into the storage corridor, hiding behind a tall stack of flour bags and supply crates. "Stay here," I whispered. "Don't move." "What are you doing?" he hissed. "What does it look like?" "I don't need protection." "Yes, you do," I snapped softly. "You're shaking like you're about to collapse." "Let me do this." Something in my voice shut him up. I stepped out of the storage corridor just as the man in the blue suit approached. He stopped in front of me, tall and menacing, eyes sharp like glass. "You," he growled. "Where is he?" I blinked innocently. "Who?" "Don't play stupid with me." He stepped closer. "Where did he go?" I kept my shoulders relaxed, even though every instinct in me screamed to run. "Sir," I said calmly, "if you keep wandering around the café without permission, I'll have no choice but to call the police." His nostrils flared. For a moment, he seemed to consider shoving past me. But then he hesitated, probably realizing that causing a scene would draw attention he didn't want. He leaned in. "When he comes out," he whispered, "tell him he can't run from this deal forever." Then he turned, marched toward the exit, and disappeared into the morning crowd. I didn't breathe until the door swung shut. Only then did I rush back to the hidden spot. Elias was leaning against the wall, eyes closed, sweat trickling down his temple. "Is he gone?" He managed double quotes, yes. He nodded weakly, and muttered something under his breath, something that sounded like a prayer of relief. But then his knees buckled. Hey! I grabbed him before he slid to the floor. "Are you okay?" "I just need a minute," he panted. "My heart. It's been acting up. I have a condition." "I saw the card," I admitted, "when I brought you your coffee." His eyes snapped open, startled. "You saw that?" "I wasn't snooping," I said quickly. It just slipped out of the folder. He lowered his gaze. Cardiac stress response disorder, he murmured, triggered by adrenaline spikes. Or big decisions, like $100 million deal? I whispered. His lips twitched into a sad ghost of a smile. Exactly that. I helped him sit on an overturned crate. Why were you even here? I asked softly. If you're this unwell? Because I needed somewhere quiet to think, he said, before going into the negotiation. The board thinks I'm completely stable. They don't know I've been hiding. This. I sat beside him. You don't have to hide something that's serious, I said. Especially when your life is literally depending on staying calm. He looked at me, really looked at me. Like I'd just said something he hadn't heard from anyone in a long time. People don't usually talk to me like that, he said. I'm not people. I'm a broke waitress with nothing to lose. He actually laughed, soft, tired, but real. Thank you, he whispered, for stepping in, for noticing. I shrugged, suddenly shy. You just looked like someone who needed help. He ran a hand through his hair. If he had confronted me out there, he said, I might have fainted, or worse. The deal would have collapsed. Years of work. Gone. Who was he? I asked. Marcus Hawley, he said bitterly. A rival CEO. He's been trying to sabotage this merger for months, and he knows my condition. That's why he came, I whispered. He wanted to stress you out, push you over the edge. Elias nodded weakly. And you stopped him. I shifted uncomfortably. Well, I didn't do it for the money or anything. I've just been trained to handle difficult customers. You handled more than that. He paused. Lily, what you did today might have saved the company. And maybe my life. I felt my cheeks heat up. I just did what felt right. Suddenly, a knock rattled the door of the back hallway. Both of us froze. Elias? A voice called. You're late for the negotiation prep. His assistant. He looked at me, conflicted. Should I go? He whispered. Yes, I said. But not like this. I stood, grabbed a cold bottle of water from the supply shelf, and pressed it into his hand. Drink. Breathe. Slow your heartbeat before you face them. He obeyed quietly, taking slow sips. When he finally stood, he looked steadier. Still pale, still exhausted, still scared, but standing. Before he left, he turned to me again. Why did you help me? He asked softly. I met his gaze. Because no one was helping me when I needed it most, I said, so I promised myself. I'd never ignore someone who looks like they're drowning. Elias swallowed. Would you? He hesitated, almost embarrassed. Consider being part of my team? I blinked. Your team? You notice what others miss, he said. You see people, not just faces. I could use someone like that. I laughed nervously. I think you need a therapist more than a waitress. I have 10, he deadpanned. They're useless compared to you. We both smiled. Then he stepped into the light of the café again, straightening his suit, walking like a man carrying the fate of an empire. But with steadier steps. As he walked away, he paused at the counter and looked back at me one last time. I don't know what that look meant, but I felt it. Hours later, the news broke. Ward and Crane secures $100 million. DELCEO arrives unusually calmly. Stared at the screen in disbelief, and then my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. I told them about you. Expect a call tomorrow. E.W. I sank into my diner apron, heart pounding. Some people walk into your life for a reason, some for a lesson, and some for a turning point. I didn't know which one he would be yet, but I knew this. Everything changed because I trusted my gut and stepped forward instead of stepping back.